So the problem here is that most people think of a database as lists of contacts, names, emails, phone numbers. But a database isn't really a list. It's a network of unfinished conversations. Think about it. Every person in your database has already crossed a line. They met you somewhere. They heard about what you do and they've shown some level of interest. That's a very different starting point from compared to a complete stranger. And yet most businesses treat both groups exactly the same. Welcome back, guys. Now, when people tell me they need more leads, the first thing I usually ask is this: how many contacts do you already have? Connections, past inquiries, past clients, people you've met once at an event and collected their business card, people who downloaded something, people who said maybe later. Now, most businesses already have hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of contacts quietly sitting in their world. And yet almost none of them are doing anything with them, which means the fastest source for growth in their business isn't new marketing. It's relationships they've already started. Now, there's a strange paradox in business that people will spend huge amounts of time and money trying to generate new leads, advertising, networking, content, events. But when it comes to the contacts they already have, they do almost nothing. Old leads sit in inboxes. Old clients disappear after the project ends. Conversations started fade away, not because the relationship ends, because there's no system to keep it alive. And that's the database blind spot. I often talk to people about, say, their LinkedIn connections and ask, how many have you got? And they'll mention 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people. And when we look at how often those people buy the thing they do, it's once a year, once every 2 years, every 5 years. And let's take a database of, or a list of contacts of 5,000 people who buy a thing every 5 years, like, say, a website refresh. That means there's 1,000 people in your network already who are already going to buy the thing you want in the next 12 months. Now, for most of us, 1,000 new clients or opportunities is more than we could ever poke a stick at. So the problem here is that most people think of a database as lists of contacts, names, emails, phone numbers. But a database isn't really a list. It's a network of unfinished conversations. Think about it. Every person in your database has already crossed a line. They met you somewhere. They heard about what you do and they've shown some level of interest. That's a very different starting point from compared to a complete stranger. And yet most businesses treat both groups exactly the same. They chase new leads whilst ignoring the warm relationships that they already have. Now, there's a few reasons that businesses ignore their database. And the first of those is lack of structure. Contacts are scattered across email inboxes, spreadsheets, LinkedIn messages. And without a central system, reconnecting with these people becomes messy. And so because it's messy, it almost never happens. The second reason is uncertainty. People worry about reaching out again. I think, what if they're not interested anymore? What if it feels awkward? What if they don't what I want? And so they avoid the conversation entirely. And the third reason is that there's no follow-up process. Even if someone wants to reconnect with their database, they don't know how to do it consistently. So it becomes another task that depends on motivation. And as we know, motivation is unreliable. Whenever I work with a business and we start activating the database properly, something interesting generally happens. Conversations start coming back to life. People reply saying things like, I've actually been meaning to reach out. Oh, timing might be good now, or let's talk. Not because you've persuaded them, but because the relationship never truly disappeared. It just went quiet. And relationships are often one message away from just becoming active again. A simple happy birthday message might start the conversation. I once worked with a client who was convinced they needed more marketing. They believed that their pipeline problem was largely a lead generation issue, not a lead management one. But when we looked at their CRM, we found something else. Over the previous 3 years, they'd spoken with hundreds of potential clients. Some had inquired, some had meetings, some had said not yet. But after those conversations ended, nothing else happened. Almost like getting your kids to clean their bedroom and expecting it to get them to get it right the first time. There was no follow-up system, no nurture process, no reactivation campaign. Those relationships simply faded away. So we created a simple reconnection sequence, just a thoughtful check-in a couple of months later. A few messages spaced out over a couple of weeks, not aggressive or pushy, just reopening the conversation. And within a month, they had multiple new opportunities in their pipeline from people who they'd already known them for years. And that's the power of a database when it's activated properly. Now, one of the biggest mistakes and misunderstandings in sales and marketing, I think, is the role of timing. Most people assume that if it's something that someone didn't buy the first time, they just weren't interested. But in reality, most buying decisions are about timing. Budgets change, priorities shift, businesses grow, and problems become more urgent where 6 months ago they weren't important at all. Someone who wasn't ready a year ago might actively be looking for help today. But if you're not visible to them when that moment arrives, they simply go somewhere else. That's why staying connected matters so much. And this is where a CRM and automation come back into the picture, because without systems, reconnecting with your database feels like a massive task. You have to remember who to contact, what to say, when to follow up. But with the right systems in place, that process becomes simple. Your database is organized. Relationships are tracked and segmented into appropriate groups. And automation helps you stay present in people's world without chasing them manually. Instead of trying to remember hundreds of conversations, the system helps you, those conversations continue naturally. You just pick them up when someone replies. Most businesses think growth comes from doing more marketing, but often the biggest growth opportunity already exists inside the relationships you've already started. People who already know you, people who already trust you, and people who simply needed more time to process what it is that you do and understand the importance of what it is you do to their business. When those relationships are nurtured properly, growth becomes much more predictable and much less exhausting. Here's something I want you to do this week. Take a look at your existing database, not just your CRM. So look at your email contacts, your LinkedIn connections, your past inquiries, your past clients, and ask yourself one simple question. How many of these relationships have I spoken to in the last 6 months? Now, I know for most of you listening, it'll be surprisingly small, which means that the probably dozens, sometimes hundreds of conversations waiting to be restarted. Now, the next time you feel that your business needs more leads, pause for a moment. Look at the relationships you've started, because growth doesn't always require new attention. Sometimes it simply requires reconnecting with the people who have already raised their hand. Now, in the next episode, we're going to talk about the final piece that brings all of it together: how to build a system where leads, conversations, and follow-ups move forward automatically, not because you're constantly pushing them, but because the business is designed to keep momentum alive. Now, before my next episode, take a look at your database. Find just 5 people you haven't spoken to in a while. Reach out and reconnect. You might be surprised at how quickly those conversations come back to life. And if you'd like help building systems that keep relationships moving forward automatically, you'll find resources and ways to connect over at winmoreclients.com.au. Until next time, more clients, less effort.